All right. Are we live? Looks like we're live. I'm gonna say that we're live. All right. Now, how am I gonna read chat? I probably should have figured that out before going live, but I was 3 minutes behind when I said I would go live. So, let's see if YouTube Studio has a thing for that. YouTube Studio does not appear to have a thing for reading comments. So let's try opening it up on YouTube. I'll just watch my own stream on YouTube. There we go. Now we'll just sneak this in right there. Move the chat window up so it's the only thing I can see. And we are good to go. I think we're good to go. Alright, today we are continuing on from what we did yesterday. And that is, we're gonna refactor some stuff, because yesterday I was just getting it working. But now we can work on polishing stuff a little. And since this is the first live stream I'm doing on YouTube, I should probably have a little bit of a recap of where we are in building the engine. So we're like mostly done with ECS, and right now we're working on creating a way to upload assets to the asset server so they can then be used in games, because I can't really start working on like demo games until I have things to use in the demo games. So right now kind of the target I'm working towards is to recreate like the spinning quad demo that I had made before, but this time with downloaded assets from the server instead of just assets included in the client. So that is what we are currently working on. Get downloads working, so then we can then re-download them back to the client. So let's show that off, at least this asset server part that we have so far. So we'll just click play on that. Then once that is up, you can just say localhost. And this is the website we have running from the asset server so far. And we have a login page, we have a way to create accounts. Eventually we'll make it so that the email it has to verify an email. But if I were just to log in as Wirewis with my password, you can see that login worked. If I don't do the right password, login fails. So we have all that stuff working, but I want to refactor the file system so that we can use something other than like an asset, like a human readable file, like a JSON file. So I kind of have this notepad of the stuff we're gonna work on this stream. First up, I have Refactor File Manager. Let's work on that. So we need to go to Source Common File Manager. Okay. And the problem that we seem to have is that read file right now just assumes that we're trying to read an asset. So it takes an asset ID And then I have the system for where assets are located in the file system. So we need to make it so that this read file is more, we can just pass it a string of the file name and it will just deal with all of that. So that would be the file extension, not the file type. So what we're going to do is move this thing, which is the asset path, into the asset ID structure. And we're going to return a path. To where we would assume that this asset would be. And then let's just generate a definition for that. We can just paste in what we had over there. And then we're just gonna say dot set. Because I don't think we're going to be having anything other than dot assets stored as assets. Yep, that looks good. Back over to here. We don't need a file type anymore. Just need the path or file name. Just like that. And I want to make it so you can read out files as either a vector or a string, because it's important for us to have both, because some things you'll want a string, some things you'll want something else. And then I'm also going to add one for reading files as JSON, because I have a lot of things that are JSON, or want to have a lot of things be stored as JSON. Right now I only have the configuration file, and I have like a custom class for that. But so iMessage data, so that's why we're reading file as a vector. Let's make this so read file, it returns a boolean, and that boolean is whether or not the whatchamacallit, the boolean is whether or not the file exists or we were able to open it. Because before I just had this sketchy workaround that is not efficient. So if we're unable to open the file, we just return false. And then in here, we will just have a T reference. Yeah, a T reference that is data. And we have I feel like both strings and vectors have a resize function. So we're just going to resize the structure that we pass in, like the data type we pass in, to be the size of the file. We then read into the data. Both of them, strings and vectors, have data and size, so that will work. That will not work. Data, size. Is there a way to get a size of a vector? Actually, we'll just have two different templates. So we'll have one vector that is t and size of t. So now we're just using the data type of the structure. So this will all work fine. Now let's just copy and create another one for read file as string. Actually, we can just have it be an overload of can't remember exactly how this is done. But there's ways to... oh, wait. We'll just have it as its own thing. Read file, and we're also going to have... I want to include the, where is it? No, that's not what I wanted to do. Include JSON. JSON.h. Do I need this to be defined above that one? And what is the namespace of this JSON? Okay, it's just capitalized JSON. All right. Read file, ID. Oh. ID.path. There we go. So this should read out assets just fine. You can say if not read file, return null pointer, otherwise create a new asset by deserializing it. Alright, now on to reading out files as strings. Okay, this. And then we just paste this in. And instead of data being instead of it being a vector, it is a string. And now for the final one, which is the string one, or JSON one, which is the one that we're going to be using. We want to do the same exact thing that config does. So when we load config, we load the config file, and then all we do is pipe it into root, like so. So literally all we have to do is copy this, make this true, and then F pipe into data, like that. And that is, yeah, that's everything. So now we can just directly read and write from files. Well, actually not write. I also want to be able to write to files that are also want to be able to write files. There are all these things. So I think I need to, if I'm going to be complete, also read, basically create the opposites of these functions. So we're going to take write file, and instead of only doing byte, I'm gonna turn this into a template. Let's copy its copy its code from over here. You want write file. This is a template. It must be in the header file. Did we only include file system in the... Apparently we did. Okay, this should stop erroring out then. There we go. And instead of this, we're gonna do the same thing that read file does. Essentially the exact same thing. You just take the file name or file path, whatever you want to call it. Take the data. And then write it out to since we can't create every step of the way, we need a way to, so output file stream. If you try to open up a file that doesn't exist, it creates one. But if you try to open up a directory that doesn't exist, it errors out. So we need to see if there's a way to create a path if it doesn't exist. I can use the Windows API. Need this to be cross-platform. Okay, so you can say create directories, which can create multiple at once, it looks like. And the path that we want to create is so we need to be able to get the path from it. So we might need to create a path first. Just like that. Then we need the, here we go, file system path. And there is a specific way to get the path, but without the end name. Well, the file name. File name, path of the parent path, relative path. Okay, so root is like that. Relative path is that. Your path is that. Okay, I think we want parent path. And that should do the trick. So now, path, if the directory doesn't exist, we create it. We then open a file using this path. Binary data.data data.size times size of t. File close. And that should be all we need to do. Great. And that should work. Now let's write some for the other variable types. That one. This is a good place where copy and paste would be very useful, but for some reason I'm just not doing that. Don't want to do a string. We want to do a JSON value. So that we can write out JSON. There we go. And this write file function be exactly the same as this one, except instead of a vector, we have a string. And then the JSON one is going to be a little bit tricky because I can't remember. Gonna have to look up the documentation for this JSON library. I can still copy this code here. I wonder, can we just go like that? We can literally just go like that. Now, let's check to see if this works. So, first thing I'm going to do is, well, first we have to fix the errors. So we want to write file asset ID path. No matching member function call for write file. What about this one? Just a vector. But oh, I see what the problem is. There we go. Now it'll work. Yep. There we go. No other errors. Now let's build so it tells us where the other errors are. There we go. I was wondering where all the errors were. So read file. Looked like unsigned in 32. Yep, unsigned in 32. I have saved. I have that saved. So we want to read the file from that directory. See, I wanted to delete that. See, and will that work? Still giving... Oh. Missed the semicolon. Too much Python programming for me. Alright. So that takes care of that error. Tell me where the others are. Hello. How's it going? Oh, that's just a warning. Build finished, it's working. Well, it built. We don't know if it's actually working. So, there we go, all that. Working. Let's reload the page, and let's create an account that, we haven't created yet. We'll just have the password as hi. So created account happened just fine. Did it create, let's say we're running as debug. Did it create the new directory just fine? Because that's what I was checking for, because when we're creating a new directory, sometimes writing to a file can glitch out. Assets, this, login data. Yep, seems fine. Actually, that didn't test if it works, because the thing already existed. So let's delete that and try again. There we go, creates directory just fine. It's working. All right, now let's not use this anymore. Let's see. Alright, so that's working as well. See, whenever I do that, I'm checking the viewer count because the top of my screen is kind of hidden from me. Actually, if I did something like that. Alright, now I can see the viewer count without doing that. Alright. What was I gonna do next? Alright. Note of instructions. Tell me what to do. Refactor file manager. To be able to read JSON files. I have done that. Move asset path generation from file manager to asset ID. I have done that. Store user info as JSON file instead of asset. That is what I need to do next. So I do that in the server code, which is in here. Login, submit, create account. There we go. This is the one that I want to mess with. So instead of an asset ID, instead let's, because I don't want it to be an asset, I just want it to be a JSON file. That way it's I can edit it. Because one of the things that will be stored in these files is the permissions of a user, and I'd like that to be editable from the file itself instead of through a user portal, because that's just easier to administrate and also debug. So instead of a serialized compacted string, just gonna have a JSON file. So instead of all this, a custom asset class and all of that, what we are going to do is just go and assets this. Let's store it in a new folder called users, because that just makes sense. So the way the assets folder is kind of organized is we have the assets, and then the next folder down is the owner, the next folder down is the type of asset. So that we have the owner, we have all the assets that the owner has, then we have the individual types of assets. So as the login information, or as the user information, I don't want that to be an asset object. We're going to create a new folder. It's just going to be called, let's call it users. So instead of all of this, let's just comment it out. Instead of all that, we're going to have instead, we'll create a new JSON object, and we're going to call it new user, and we're gonna set new user username equal to and I should say right now passwords are being stored as plain text, but in the future they are going to be stored as a hash value. I'm just going to get that out there. just in case anybody was wondering that. At the moment, plain text, future as a hash. This is just for debugging. So let's see. New user, username equals request get header username. I should probably, instead of a header, should probably just make the body of the HTTP post request like a JSON object. I feel like that would maybe be better practice. I don't know what best practices for HTTP requests are, so I'm just gonna keep it like this for now. Yeah. Email is going to be can't type right now. Gonna have the actual, we're gonna have to store it as password hash to remind ourselves eventually to figure out how to do that. Because like I already have OpenSSL in this project and that all set up, so it should just be a matter of following a few tutorials while not streaming to get that set up. Because there are things like, I think it's called the salt, the algorithm, but there's like a thing that makes the hash unique for the specific algorithm. It's called like a salt or whatever, and I don't want that on stream. I mean, I could code it and then change the salt later, but I don't know. Get header value. See, that should be an it. Excuse me? Value. There we go. So then we have all of that, and then we will just what's it called? File manager. Write file, and we're gonna write this to users users dot, well, not users dot, just gonna grab this, store it as their username dot JSON. And we want this as string. And then we enter in the data, which is new user. Just like that. Now let's test this out, see if it actually works. Okay, it appears to be running. So let's go to create account. With our glorious password of password. And I should probably have this, we're gonna change the name of that button. Let's see, asset server, pages, create account, HTML. There we go. Now if we refresh this page, it's now submit. But what we're not interested in, that. We're interested in this new users folder that has been created. Like that, wirewiz.json. Email, password hash is just password. and username. Now the username is a little bit redundant because the way that we look up this file is using the username. I should probably have that like converted to lowercase. Yeah, it'd be a good idea to convert that to lowercase. Let's do that. Get header value username dot okay, let's see. String lowercase. I'm not quite sure what this is doing. It looks like it's using like functional coding. You take like the beginning and the end and you run like a to-lower on it. It seems a little sketch. Okay, so to-lower, it runs on a character. So what this example here was doing is it's taking, yeah, this is like a functional coding thing. We're saying iterate over that, and then to lower. I'm not quite that fancy. I'm just going to use a for loop. Yes, our. Okay. Now where was I? Where did I want to do this? All right, right here. So we have our username string for auto reference. Actually, we can just do character reference. Char C in. Mostly because it's easy and for testing, and I don't plan on using like something like MySQL for the project, since I'm going to be having like a custom data format for other different types of assets. I'm gonna have like file caching as well, just like a regular database thing would have as well, but the final solution would still be JSON unless I come up with something better, which I probably will for now. For C and username, standard to lower? Or is it just lower here? What was it? To lower. Is it part of IOStream? Let's see. It's defined in header CC type. Is it defined in any others? I feel like it should be included in standard string. Oh. Use of undefined. Declared it right there. Ah. There we go. That took longer than it should have. But then... So username should now be lowercase. And here when I'm writing, I don't have to do the sketchy stuff like rereading from the JSON. We can just use username. like that. Much nicer. Now let's retry this again. There we go. Email. Actually, we want to store their username as the capitalization that the user wants, because that's just, you know, good courtesy, or good courtesy. Where did that come from? It's just polite. There we go. So let's do the lowercasing before we store the file and before we read it eventually. So stop, go. There we go. It's running again. So let's try creating an account. So username should be lowercase. Though I'm not seeing a lowercase file here, even though the username used here is supposedly lowercase. It might be that we're just getting a character and not like a reference to the actual characters in the string. So let's just go generic for loop for this. Yeah. Okay. Oh, there we go. So for everything in username dot size. Alright, that should do the trick. And just for good measure, I'm going to delete that. Go, create our account. There we go. Now that's lowercase, and the username stored in it is capitalized. It kept the capitalization. Why can't I close the file? Can I close this one? Why can't I close that one? Okay, whatever. Alright, so this is all working, except for the password hash, which is non-existent. Next, let's actually fix the login, because right now, if I try to log in as WireWiz, so if we try to log in like this, login fails because the login doesn't work anymore. See, why am I not just using a regular database? Because I'm stupid. That's about it. I prefer coding stuff from scratch when I can, and right now I don't see the benefit of using a database at the moment. When I do find the use for it, I'll implement it. I did at one point go through the effort of figuring out how to use the C++ connector for MySQL. So if I were to use a database, I would be using MySQL. Let's see, next we'll work on logins. So what we want is first the username. And then we need this. Actually, we don't need the brackets. And then we need read file. So there we go, we already have the login data, so we don't need any of that. So now if login data, right. So we want this to be read file, and we can actually just plop this in here. Actually, no. Because compilers aren't consistent in which direction they... Actually, no, usually they do go left to right. I'll risk it. It's function arguments that go from right to left when they're called, not if statement. If statements are fine, they go from left to right. So then we need if user password. Is equal to get header value password. Set cookie logged in. Eventually I'll actually have this be a session ID. In fact, I think that's what we will be working on next, I think. Else set content. Login fail. That looks good. Let's test it out. So login, WireWiz, password. Alright, something isn't working. I think... Let's see. Asset server, users... Okay, so that still isn't working. Let's run it as debug instead. Put a breakpoint here. Okay, so we get our username, and then see, I'm used to Visual Studio, so step over is F8, step into is F7. Okay. So we do the two lower stuff. Then we get the user. And then let's step into... So first we construct a string. Another string, then we read the file. In the file name we're trying to read is users wirewiz.json, which exists. It's right here. Okay, so we actually do read it. We read stuff into data. What just happened? See, we want the main thread. Where is it? It's just running on the thing. Well, actually, no, it wouldn't be the main thread that's running the server because the server's running on a different thread. I don't know which one is the server thread, though. Really? See, that's one of the reasons I was thinking about switching over to YouTube, was because I've heard that discoverability on YouTube is much better than on Twitch. And I have been streaming on Twitch a bit. Yeah, this stream has been doing, like, we've held about 3 viewers for the duration of it, and on Twitch it's just flatline. But yeah, there's also the benefit of on YouTube, when you're streaming on YouTube, it also contributes to your watch hours. You know, you can get closer to the monetization and all that. But also, like, it'll be nice to have everything in like one place. Like, if you want to see like the polished videos, which I plan on coming out with soon, as soon as I get myself to write scripts and stuff and actually figure out like what to put in them. So we'll have the videos in one place and the streams are like on the same page, so if people want to watch, you know, it's just all in the same place. And that's why I'm thinking about switching from Twitch to YouTube. But also it's nice to hear that it's like actually getting recommended to people. Let's see. So we read the file, and then as soon as we went to read it from the JSON, it cut out. So why would that be? Oh, I forgot to close the file in here. That's not good. Maybe that's why it errored out? It shouldn't have been why it was errored out. Let me make sure the... maybe... See, where's file manager.h? Did I remember to close it in? Okay, I did remember to close it in this one. Alright. Let's try running debug again. And back in the server, read a file. Let's create a breakpoint in here, right there. Yeah, log in. Then it's actually I clicked F8, so maybe F8 is step out. What is F8? Is F8 continue? No, it's F9. Maybe I accidentally pressed F9 last time. In any case, I clicked too fast. Gonna reload this page. Not that password. Let's log in. Then F7. 7. No, it's not all in one runtime. This is on a separate thread. And I plan to also have like error handling in here as well. And I'm not sure, but the HTTP library I'm using for the server might also handle stuff like that. In any case, I'm going to have multiple levels of stuff eventually. Right now, we're just getting it working, bare bones, and then we'll go on to add in that sort of stuff. Right now, bare minimum viable product. Let's see, and we want F8. Okay. Let's see, create the user. That is a... we accidentally click the wrong debugging button. It's fun. But it didn't send a callback here, which is interesting. Maybe it is throwing an error? That could be it. It could be throwing an error. We're just not realizing it. Alright, let's see if this gives us anything. Login? Login submission error. Line 1, column 1, syntax error. Value, object, or array expected. Alright. So it's a problem with our JSON file. JSON file seems fine. Oh, maybe it's that I had the at the end set there. That could have been it. So it's starting at the very end of the file and then trying to read from there. That could be the problem. Because in all the other file reading functions, I start at the end of the file, use that to tell the size of the file, and resize my data object to that size, and then set the file cursor to be at the beginning of the file. Whereas in this one, I don't need any of that, so maybe? Could be. So F, we don't need any of that. There we go, login successful. There we go. So from this we learn two things. One is that the HTTP library I'm using does handle errors, but it just doesn't tell us. It just dies silently. It still works. It still does the callbacks, but you just don't hear anything if there's an error. So I should put like these try catches here. To get if there is an error. So both very good things to know. Let's see, and we don't need that anymore since we have replaced the code and validated that it is working. So we're just gonna have this here so we hear about stuff when it happens and catch bugs. So there we go, we have logins working using JSON files instead of assets. So we can actually edit them by hand, which is very nice. Now, question is how to set permissions, because I think that was the next thing, is setting user permissions. Yep, incorporate permissions into the server after storing user info in JSON file instead of asset. And then we're on to creating a single page application for the user dashboard so that we can upload assets and see all that sort of stuff if they have the upload asset permission. So maybe for permissions we can just have a permissions object that is a list like that. And then we can just put stuff like admin and also
this is a computer system that might be smarter than a human. Right now, we're inside a computer program.
Maybe an assets permission? I'm not sure. I'll figure this. We will flesh this stuff out more as we go. Probably getting closer to the end of the stream here because I've kind of run out of immediate things to do that don't require a lot of thought. But so we have permissions, and let's just make it so it writes it out. Also, another thing, one last thing we can do before we end this stream, and that is when we're creating a new account, we want to check to see if username already exists. So if file system exists, and we put this in there, if that JSON file already exists, we want to deny the capability to create that user again. So we'll just return username taken, and then just return. Looks good. Let's test it out. Create account. We want to make one with the username WireWiz, and we get the result username taken. All right. So that is working. All right. What was the other thing I wanted to do? I have to keep reminding myself. User permissions. So I like the idea of having like a list of strings as the permissions. I like that idea because then you can just have anything you need as a permission, and then theoretically on their own servers people might eventually be able to like create their own permission levels, or no, not permission levels, because they'd still have the same like individual okay, whatever. What's it gonna do? I have to set the permissions equal to... I need to look up the documentation for this one. So it's JSON CPP. Wait. This is it. So want something like this, where plugins, root plugins. Oh, nope. So we can iterate over the items of a... We can iterate over the items of a list. But how do we create a new list? I didn't see the thing about where the RGB hoodie at. Okay, it's only blue and next stream. I'll wear it next stream. It's only ice blue. I wish it was RGB. It'd be sick if it was RGB. But I couldn't find any LED strips that were dense enough for it to look nice. And also RGB, and it would be like super expensive. So I just stuck with ice blue because it made the most sense. So if we have an array index, we can access an array element. What if we just add permissions 0 as just like a plain user? And I wonder if that would create a list. So if we create this same thing, oh right. Create account. Okay, so it does create a list. Nice. It's not in order, but what can you ask? So we get a permissions user. Looks good. The next steps would be making sure that email is valid with the regular expression or stuff on the client side and on the server side. Actually, let's add these to the thing. Dang it, I just forgot. What was I about to do? Right. Force real email. We'll see. Using ints for permission doesn't really fit with kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking like adding each permission for, it's like a permission for an action. So like if you want to allow somebody to moderate but not upload assets for some reason, you could give them the moderation permission but not the manage assets permission or something like that. So it's kind of like pick and choose instead of having like levels of authority sort of thing. Let's see, so force real email. And force a password length. In the future. And then we can move on to user dashboard stuff and all of that. And I would also like to, at some point, maybe move these out of lambdas. But maybe I can just have like a start listening function that I could put the lambdas in, like where it adds the lambdas. I don't know, because I feel like this function is getting pretty long. But the lambdas work for now. And also you can't really do like... I'll just keep them lambdas for now. Alright. Well, I think that is all for this stream. I got done what I wanted to get done. Next time, I should have, by the time I stream again, I should have password hashes set up and the start of the user dashboard. So then next time we'll start working on a user dashboard so we can actually upload assets and then use them in a demo of some sort, which probably will be hard-coded because I don't want to have to wait until I come up with like an entire node scripting system to have the first demo released. So we're just gonna like hard code in the game logic into the client for like the first time. But assets are gonna be dynamically loaded because that's what we wanted to do. That's what we're showing off. But until then, I'll see you guys next time in the Tron cloak next time. Let's see, it is not stopping. Maybe I need to click the YouTube button for it? Alright. Bye for real, actually, this time.